Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as usual, I am joined by my brother in crime, the time-traveling tornado, the bearded wonder, the professional question mark? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
I deserve that. Thank you. Thank you. I deserve that.
Take it in.
That's a new one, isn't it?
That is not bad at all. I deserve this.
I deserve the standing ovation. Thank you.
Well, you're doing my book, bud. It's good to be speaking to you again, and good to be heard.
Right back at ya.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be heard by the 9 to possibly 10 some odd people who are listening to the show. Hello and welcome. In case you guys missed the ridiculous intro, this is Pull Focus, and it is Andrus and I, and we are once more in the time of COVID, isolated to our own studio / living room / office / kitchens, and doing what we can to maintain our bewildered friendship by talking about movies, entertainment, and everything. And you guys get to, be a part of the conversation. Andrus, how are you doing, man? This is the 4th some odd episode we've done when it comes to being under the pandemic paradise. How are you holding up? From the date of this recording, we have been social distancing and practicing proper non-virus habits for 6 months now. I'm getting kind of tired of watching my fingernails grow. What are you doing?
Well, I'm still busier than ever. So, my 18-hour plus days are still happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm maintaining. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
I'm good.
I keep checking in with all of the talent that we have auditioning for us when we have a video Zoom version of an audition.
Yeah, sure.
And everybody's just par for the course right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's maintaining. That I think there's the idea that that we need more social interactions.
Sure.
To maintain our sanity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody's doing what they can to still be safe with everything. So
that is one thing that's kind of get me off balance a bit. Like I'm beginning to realize I'm not the most extroverted person in the world, but it is absolutely become apparent to me how social I am and how social we all are as human beings and everything. It's when you're not allowed to do the usual thing and talk to like coworkers and friends and family unless it's with a 6-foot distance or through a microphone and computer screen or something, it has definitely grated on me a little bit. I think it's because I finally turned my point here when it comes to being patient about everything. Like months 1 through 5, I'm golden. Once you get to month number 6, that's when I start turning into a maniac. But
are you feeling some of those mania episodes?
Oh, heck yeah, dude. And when I do feel manic, I tend to sit back, relax, and try and, transport myself into another world with the gift of cinema. Maybe I'll be a dark night. Maybe I'll be trapped in a time loop in a rom-com. Maybe I just realized how many time-traveling movies we've been doing this year. It's kind of freaky, actually. Or maybe I'll hop into my phantom phone booth and waste the while away, saving the universe with the power of music.
Saving all time?
All time. And partying on. In case you guys haven't picked up yet, because I've been making it ridiculously opaque, we are going to be talking about Bill and Ted's latest movie, like the real people. The latest Bill and Ted movie, Bill and Ted Face the Music. The incredible duo of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter are back for one last time after a 20-year hiatus. Let's check and see the preview.
No way.
When your wives suggested couples therapy, do you think that this is what they had in mind?
Definitely. I mean, we're a couple of couples, right?
Bill, Ted, enough of the delusions. You didn't time travel, and you didn't go to heaven and hell. Here's a real idea for you. Be role models to your daughters. Get real jobs.
Bill, we've spent our whole life trying to unite the world, and I'm tired, dude.
Ted, we have a destiny to fulfill.
Whoa! Greetings, my excellent friend. We have a problem.
Step forward. A song created by Preston Logan, performed tonight, will save reality as we know it.
Dude, we better write that song now. Or why can't we just go to the future when we have written it?
And take it from ourselves.
Except, won't that be stealing?
Cheers! How is that stealing if we're stealing it from ourselves, dude?
Dude, our dads are totally in trouble. We should help them out.
No way! How's it going, Bill and Ted?
We're putting together a most extraordinary band.
Hey, you want to be in our band?
this is ja fantastisch. We're gonna go talk to Death. Is he playing hopscotch by himself? Dude, he's cheating. Hey, Death.
Life, it isn't a wild stallion.
Let's rock!
Be excellent to each other.
Silliest thing
Party
we've
on,
done.
dude.
Thea! Billy! Dad! How you doing?
Well, you know, we're dead and we're in hell.
But how you doing?
We're good.
Okay. So, like I mentioned before, everybody, we are talking about the latest foray into time-traveling silliness, Bill and Ted Face the Music. After 20-some-odd years, we have a complete trio of films about your two favorite time-traveling characters who are saving the world with the power of rock. From the IMDb synopsis, once told they'd save the universe during a time-traveling adventure, two would-be rockers from San Dimas, California find themselves as middle-aged dads still trying to crank out a hit song and fulfill their destiny. This film was had a cult following with its original film. What was it? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Excellent Adventure.
Yep. Then followed by Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey back in 1991. And then because of, well, you know, the usual reasons as to why movies are made, because people thought they could make some money, but also because it'd be entertaining to the diehard fans and the cult following those two films provided and have continued to provide for the past 20 years. If you'll look through Google search and whatnot, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey comes up first before the original rock and roll hit, and they are currently Bill and Ted Face the Music just came out a week ago, but as of the date of this recording, is not being scored as high as the two previous films for obvious reasons. Rated PG-13, it was released on August 28th, and it is staying high at a roughly 6.4 out of 10 stars on IMDb.com.
Ooh.
So, Andrus.
Yes.
I'm going to throw this right over to you because I think that when it comes to silly, pointless movies, I tend to be a little bit more critical about it, even though the saving grace for me when melodrama and that kind of stuff is taken care of. I love the first Bill and Ted movies, but again, I was in high school when they were first produced.
I could relate, right?
Yeah.
You could relate, right?
Absolutely. And I was wearing nothing but flannel and saying "Party On," like the whole Wayne and Garth thing. That was part of this whole kind of dumb, friendly rocker kind of stuff. But I was also doing the Wild Stallions thing when I was watching it. Super cool. I can definitely understand the need and the opportunity that was taken in making this film. Unfortunately, like every other movie that's coming out this year, it did miss its big theater release because of the pandemic. And it is still, though, trending very well with just dealing with at-home downloads and buying that kind of thing. But when it comes to movies like this, there's always a question that pops up in my head, And it's mostly in regards to, like I mentioned before, the reasons as to why it was produced. Do you think that this is actually, honoring the fans of the original movies in some way, doing it for fun? We get to see Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter reprise their roles, which I think is always, a positive thing. Or was this just a money grab that went wrong that has adapted really well given the pandemic and the delivery system? But is it just a situation where people saw an opportunity and they said, hey, we can make some cash. Let's get these people back together and boil together a pretty weak script to just get things moving? What do you think?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. This was like crowdfunded for the seed money to get this going, right?
If that is the case,
to do that.
If that is the case, then my attitude about this entire thing is going to change
right
here.
If I remember, I could be totally mistaken.
I'll look it up right now.
Do any research leading up to that statement. So, if that is the case, I think. Because I don't think that Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves really wanted to do another one because they wanted to let it live in the past. But I think the fans instigated something, and this is the result.
That's interesting. Let's see what the Wikipedia.
Maybe perhaps. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I did a little bit of looking, but not much. But I will say that. This just felt like a regurgitation of the original in a lot of ways. And there were some hits, there were some misses. I definitely laughed a lot. So, I mean, if I'm going to give it kudos for laughability, both laughing at it and laughing with it. So
I gotcha.
But I mean, that's the type of movie that it is and that it will remain, I think. I really appreciate the fact that they brought back several of the characters, several of the actors from the originals. We have Missy and we have Dad and we have Death.
Yeah, for sure.
Which was really fun to have all of them return.
It is nice to see like William Sadler come back and play Death and Hal Landon come up.
He won me over.
For sure.
Like for sure.
Then we have like Hal Landon Jr. Coming up, reprising his usual, evil dad roles and that kind of stuff. He had a much bigger role in the second movie, but here you see him come back and do the same thing. And even though they're 20 years older, all Amy Stosh as well playing Missy. They've all been able to, fall right back into it, I think, and do a really good job. I mean, obviously they didn't have as much screen time. William Sadler doesn't come in until like the third act, and you only see him for about 15 minutes. But it's fun to see him do his thing. This whole movie was based upon nostalgia, and to your point, reading from the Wikipedia article, Reeves and Winter were both eager to return to their roles. There was little interest in the script from many studios, according to Matheson. Original films, Matheson. Working on the script. That was the writer, one of the writers on the script. The original films were considered culty by the studios and wanted significant changes to the ideas that they had established, or even a reboot series. They actually tried to get a television series of Bill and Ted after the two movies back in the 90s, and that fell flat, unfortunately. Studios also expressed concern that since the first film was not distributed internationally, there would be a large audience for another sequel. They found little traction. But began trying to appeal to fans around 2014, talking about their desire to make it. That was, Reeves and Winter.
Oh, so they were the instigators.
Exactly. They confirmed the film was still planned in interviews over the following few years. They emphasized that this was more than just a money grab, but an earnest work. Solomon, the other writer for the series, Ed Solomon, said so, speaking to Digital Spy in an interview in 2018. So they were lighting a fire for sure. I don't see anything here regarding. Well, this is just a good example of people who have clout in Hollywood going and putting their head to the ground and trying to make things work. It wasn't something in which they had like a Kickstarter going on or a GoFundMe or anything like as dynamic as that. But that I was unaware of. The fact that it was mostly starting with Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, who are the writers of the Bill and Ted series, and then with extra help from Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter making some momentum. It looks like this is just like old school Hollywood shopping around that they've been doing since around 2010, something like that, and being able to provide enough reasons as to why they got some funding from Hammerstone Studios, I believe, that was finally able to produce it, and then we had this release popping up in a partnership between MGM and Orion Pictures that help with distribution and whatnot.
Which is interesting to me that movies like this still become relevant.
Yeah,
because why make a movie like this? It's pure entertainment. That's all it is.
Well, let's talk about that.
I don't know that the story needs to speak to the masses,
right,
other than, hey, let's all be good to each other.
That's the thing too. Like maybe it's definitely the times too. I mean, we're dealing with a pandemic here in Salt Lake City. The state's on fire again, as it was last year. People are dealing with a lot of stuff and a lot of things happening. Maybe just a regular feel-good movie where you weren't trying to make another Dunkirk or something like that was something that appeals to people. And I think they would definitely have a lot of weight in regards to that, for sure, Andrus. I mean, this film is really simple. It isn't doing anything new. It's cookie cutter. They're taking the same script that they had in the second movie and the first movie, whereas Bill and Ted, this time Bill and Ted's daughters, go around in time trying to find people who are talented enough. And they pick up Mozart. They pick up some other legendary Jimi Hendrix, other legendary musicians and music makers and really capable people. Some of the cameos I liked very much. David Grohl's in this movie for a whole 5 minutes.
I appreciated that.
Absolutely. And Kid Cudi actually is in this movie. And he has a pretty valuable role too as a as a theoretical physicist who's able to tell him how to finally save the world and make everybody play this song. Oh yeah, one point.
Spoiler alert!
Like I said, I laughed a lot.
Spoiler alert!
So this is definitely like one of those movies where I have to take my brain out of my head and just sit back and eat my popcorn. And I'm not I don't mind about doing that. I'm a fan of being able to just relax and realize that they just want to have fun. They just want to show us what we can do. What they can do, and if they can, get some people back in who, want to make a paycheck here or there, so be it. I've told you on more than one occasion that if I could have a working movie studio that didn't pump out any hits or anything like that, but was there specifically just so that my friends in the biz could have a regular paycheck, I would definitely commit to that if I have the capability of doing it. I don't care. But when we get to the argument about, well, not an argument, but when we get to the theory as to why this movie was made, I guess it's a little bit of both. But there's no question that this thing is definitely getting a lot of momentum because of nostalgia. The question is, did they happen to use that right then? Once you realize that a movie or a series is made specifically because of the cult following, specifically because people remember how good or fun the first movie was or the second movie was, do they handle that appropriately? Do they honor the fans in the most recent incarnation? I think they did. I think they were able to have the same chemistry. I don't think Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter have lost any chemistry in regards to playing these two characters. And when you talk about it, even though Alex Winter hasn't been in front of the camera, he's been working in Hollywood since these movies were made, behind the camera as a director for a number of documentaries, voiceover. He's been staying very busy. This movie is one of the most popular pieces in Keanu Reeves' whole repertoire. I mean, this movie helped his career. Not this movie specifically, but the first two back in the 90s. After that, we soon saw him going into roles for Speed and then The Matrix and that kind of thing. It was because he was able to prove his chops on this silly high production movie, and from there the ball just started rolling, really.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, if we didn't have Bill and Ted's, would we have The Matrix?
Great question.
That movie blew my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
That movie changed my entire psyche
appreciation for him, for sure. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to grab my notes real quick. I don't have it at my desk, and we're going to talk about a little bit more in regards to how the nostalgia is a really powerful factor in this.
Look out the window because the sunset's insane.
That's ridiculous. Right? That's ridiculous, dude.
That's one of the most beautiful sunsets on the planet because there's so much smoke in the air.
Exactly, right? That's the that's the thing. It's like, you can see all the pink light because of all the carbon monoxide in the air. Oh my goodness. Hold on, right back. I get my notes.
Yeah.
Mom, I'm recording. You didn't know that? Are you done heating stuff up? Okay. I need you to, come on. I need you to read the room a little bit, okay? Okay, I'm back. I can get that out. Awesome. All right, so I think that when it does come to the nostalgia, I mean, that's what we have to ask again. Like, once you have a film like this that was a cult classic, like I mentioned before, and you have committed to using that as a reason to sell tickets, you have to make sure you don't, mess up when it comes to providing the look backs for the audience. Like, people are watching this because they remember how cool Bill and Ted was, remember how nice it was. I think that this movie did a good job of it, specifically when it comes to these different shout outs for old characters. You were talking about it before. We have the original cast coming back for the most part. I mean, like, we do have some, we have some new additions when it comes to like Samara Weaving and Bridget Ludi Payne, who played Thea and Billy. But we still also have some of the original cast back, like we were just talking about. Also, we have like cameos from like Rufus and like some of the original people who were in the head council back in the other movies as well.
Which I appreciated that they had some Rufus in there, just because George Carlin passed so long ago.
I got a little emotional.
Really
I'll be honest.
To have him in there.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of his. I mean, he's a revolutionary comedian that changed stand-up comedy forever, and the fact they're able to have George Carlin in there, even though it was just like an edited program of some dialogue that he recorded years ago, or somebody doing a voiceover of him or whatever.
It was just archive footage of him.
Oh,
it was pretty cool.
But still, it was such a nice nod because George Carlin helped make these movies. Rufus was the catalyst to Bill and Ted, giving them the adventure and telling them what they had to do and all this other stuff. But at the same time, it had a good balance of like offering like new talent and cameos as well. We already talked about Kid Cudi and Dave Grohl. We have Desmond Still, who played Jimi Hendrix, Jeremiah Kraft, who played Louis Armstrong. We had this interesting kind of mix of the old and the new. And you could definitely see the age in some of the actors, as you would, because we haven't seen them for 20 years, and they're still going strong, still doing the thing, and we're able to find good chemistry in this silly universe. But if it wasn't for the work of Reeves and Winter, this entire thing would have fallen apart. But luckily, they've stayed friends over the past 20 some odd years. The two of them kind of, cut their teeth in Hollywood after these films are being made, and this was able to catapult their careers in a lot of ways, and they were able to, be able to work together and stay in contact. They've said on many interviews how they kept in touch and this kind of stuff, and I think it was really sweet at the end of the movie.
Spoiler alerts!
When we had a post-credit scene of Bill and Ted playing duos, possibly for the last time, before they were about to pass away.
Sweet.
And you could tell that they were faking on the guitar. Obviously, I mean, they don't know how to play the guitar, but the fact that
they haven't been practicing for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly, right. But the fact that they are able to put that in there and give like a little goodbye, even though it's 20 years later, they're able to put like a little a little cork on the top of this thing and call the series finally really done. And I think they handled that responsibly because, again, when you're dealing with a series like this that is completely moved because of the nostalgia factor, you have to give out all these different waves so like the fans can say, oh, yeah, this, and oh, wow, that's cool, and have all these little Easter eggs in the back of the shot while they're shooting like in the garage or something like that. One thing that I did find was a little bit weird was how sometimes, even though they were using the same they're using the same kind of series of events. They're using the same kind of idea. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit different. I know that there's not a lot you can do when you have a couple of guys from San Dimas who are supposed to save the world with the power of their rock. But I would have liked to have seen like maybe a little different the story. They're telling the same story 3 times in a row. They're just changing the way that it looks, keeping the constant of Bill and Ted there. Do you think it would have worked in some other way, or was that like the only choice they had in this production?
Well, and that's one of my biggest complaints about this movie is 20 years changes people a lot, right? And for me to have them be the exact same characters just in a 20-year in the future situation was kind of a misstep for me as a fan.
Okay.
I really did have hope for them to make this epic band work out to save the world, the universe, time, whatever. And especially from such a couple of idiots. Why not, champion the underdog there? Yeah. But so for me, I thought it was kind of stupid in a sense that they basically regurgitated the first 2 films. Yeah. As far as the storyline, as far as the outcome, etc. I do like the fact that they threw a curveball in there, and that's a spoiler that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
But spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
Spoiler alerts.
But ultimately, I think that it would have been a really cool idea to have Bill and Ted be tutored by the greats, like the Dave Grohls, like the Van Halens, like all of the people that we all now know and appreciate. Absolutely. What would be really funny if Adele popped in.
Hell yeah.
Was giving them vocal lessons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would
Lady Gaga on fashion, whatever. Because I mean, I think that would be something that's very, very cool. It's fun that they have Kid Cudi basically take that. So I mean, they did get some contemporary in there, and I'm a fan of his. But there's a lot in there that I think we could have done without, and explored something a little bit deeper, a little bit more,
and still held on to the nostalgia factor as
well.
Yeah,
more into the idea of where their characters could have gone rather than the surface of what it is.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's one place where we can agree upon it completely. Taking this movie a little bit more out of the 90s and out of the stickiness of it would have been nice. I mean, also we have to think about the funding and how much you'd have to pay those artists and that kind of stuff. So there's limitations, and I can definitely give it a wide berth in that regard. But I think you're absolutely right. What better opportunity to put the spotlight on, maybe like Billie Eilish, or maybe somebody
really
else.
Cool to have,
Or maybe some up-and-comers, maybe some people who, at the time of shooting, were just beginning to get their career started or something like that. Kid Cudi is pretty well-known, and that was definitely a step in the proper direction. And he had, one of the most important parts in the entire movie, even though he didn't have that much screen time, which I think, respect, that's great. But then the rest of the heavy lifting was done by actors who did a great job, but they were playing, Amadeus Mozart. They were playing, Jimi Hendrix, these amorphous kind of... musical bookmarks in history that everybody does respect. But I agree with you, though. It's definitely a bit of a missed opportunity in that regard. And if it wasn't for the fact that people are willing to give this movie the breadth that it can get because of the silliness and the nostalgia, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked in a brand new movie or anything like that. It'd just be...
Right. I don't think it would have.
Yeah, it's really kind of lazy writing, honestly, when you think about it. I mean, I don't want to be too critical or anything. I've never written a multi-million-dollar film, but
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Although it was really fun to see the different versions of.
I was just about to talk about that. Yeah,
all of that, but I've got to talk about my other complaint really quick.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Which was the fact that Billy and Thea played caricatures of Bill and Ted, and that was the most annoying part of the entire film for me, because I think that they're very talented actors.
Oh, you cannot. Oh man,
no,
totally.
I think they're great. But the fact that they were doing really cheap versions of Bill and Ted as the daughters, because they were even intelligent. You know what I mean? It did not make sense that they were so goofy, stupid like Bill and Ted.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Yet these intelligent, well-rounded musicians themselves.
For sure.
So that was the biggest misstep for me. Is just like, why not let them be like really introverted kids or really nerdy kids or really whatever they are, in contrast to who their parents are, and not just rip them off.
I mean, when you look at Samara Weaving's filmography in IMDb, I mean, she is a heavy hitter. It is ridiculous. Yeah. Same thing with Bridget Payne. She's been doing all kinds of things for years, since 2015. And these two are just like beginning. I mean, they're in their late 20s, early 30s, just like
accomplished.
Oh, dude,
they
killers!
Very easily do their own version of what they are.
Those are the kind of actors where, for sure. And like that's sometimes when like the nostalgia factor, when like the formula gets in the way a little bit. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to play with the gas on this too much because you know exactly what this movie is, and you have to be careful because if it is absolutely getting pushed by the nostalgia, you have to honor that. You have to make sure that everyone gets a little nod, that everybody is coming into the theater, and that, like, in the last scene with Kid Cudi when he holds up his hands and he says "Station." I mean, that was from the second movie, and you have to do things like that. It is a little bit weird when you have like these killers in the cast, and all you really need to do is say, "Hey, so here's what's happening. We're not even going to give you a script. You just go with it and improv, and you'll be able to get something that you can put into the edit." But I mean, I can understand the reason behind that. It is like another missed opportunity that comes into play. But you have to be very careful when it comes to that specific dynamic. How much of a breadth are you going to give the actors to explore it here or there, when really the thing that people are coming back to is to see Bill and Ted try and fight time and save the world. And going back to like what you mentioned, I wrote that exact same thing too. The different versions of Bill and Ted are hilarious. So the main story point in this is that Bill and Ted are like up against a rock and a hard place. They actually have a timer going off that is in sync with the time left in the actual movie, which I thought was cute, where they have like, an hour and a half or so to save the world by finding this new song. And they decide that, hey, the simplest way to do this is to just go into the future and visit our future selves and ask them how they did it. And this was something that was touched on a lot in the second movie, where they would go across and like actually bend physics by just having conversations. There would be the situation where they would talk about like, well, you did happen to have that gun, but little did you know, Bill went back in time and switched that gun with a super soaker that then was blah, 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 blah. And it was this really cool little dynamic that they put into play where Bill and Ted are God, really. And that's pretty much what's happening. And it got to a point so silly in the second movie where all they had to do was say they went back in time and did this and that. At the climax of the movie, they went forward in time and learned how to play guitar and then came back and just nailed it. And it's similar to what they're doing here. But what happens now is that because of it being 20 years since the 90s, and we have great effects, and we have two actors that are honestly really good at playing characters, Alex Winter has not lost his chops. He is still a very funny actor. We see them in different time frames. We see them when they're, they become alcoholics because their wives have left them. They become imposters at Dave Grohl's mansion and and that was a great shout out to Dave Grohl too, because they were listening to the song that he made and they were like, oh, that has to be it. That has to be it. That's the best song in the world. That's going to unite humanity. And then they find out, wait a minute, you idiots. You didn't make this. Dave Grohl made this song.
Exactly.
And then, like, ultimately in their final form.
Dave Grohl could make the music.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan. But when we, yeah, exactly. I'm more Foo Fighters than the other band. And then we see you see Bill and Ted in their last incarnation where everything has gone to crap, and they're in prison and they're doing some sort of like stomp kind of vocal poetry that they're using as a way to sing and stuff now, and they are jacked. And you know that Winter and Weaves are wearing like bodysuits, but because of the additional CGI, it looks really good. They actually do look like they're
legit, didn't it?
It looked really, really legit.
It was almost seamless, yeah.
And I honestly got to give so much credit to Winter and Reeves about just going hard with these characters, and it's just so respectful, because we know that this series of movies is part of the reason as to why they are where they are today. And Reeves and Winter Booth. Reeves, we don't really have to talk about too much. He's been in front of the camera for years, and he is a textbook in making proper decisions, being honorable to yourself as an actor, and being able to just thrive in a very, very, very hard and competitive environment. Winter's the same thing. He's had a position behind the camera, but he's thrived as well. If you check his IMDb credits, he's been doing things with documentaries. He's been doing things with lots of animation. He's been behind the camera, still a major power in Hollywood, and just kind of like, they're both kind of like the actor's actor. I like to point out people who don't get into the business just to get famous, people who get into it to work, and these two have definitely worked. And when you see them go so hardcore into playing these silly, ridiculous, stupid, but sweet characters, it warms your heart. It really does. And I hearken again back to that post-credit scene where you see them both jamming out for the last time, when it was like probably completely improvised, and it's just carried out to the end of the film. And it's great. It's great. They're not so egotistical that they're not going to go back to their roots. And I wish that would happen more often with actors. I find it kind of refreshing when you see somebody who made it big off of like Pee-wee's Playhouse or something go back and play something akin to that because they're so good at doing it. They're just good actors, and that's always refreshing in this thing. So I can't give them enough kudos in regards to coming back and making that happen, regardless of the reasons as to why. I do wish, though, that they could do a little bit more when it came to the way they faked the instruments, because nobody on this cast knew how to play anything. And that was painfully obvious, man.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be like a thing that separates good actors from bad, maybe? People who don't take themselves too seriously and are willing to like play the part as well as they can, regardless of what's on the script? Or do you think ego has so much to do with it?
I don't know. Like you could argue any which direction of that one, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Well, do you agree with me that
I would say maybe yes and maybe no.
Maybe yes, maybe no. It is a big question. It's a really wide question to ask. Kind of like, hey, do you think that the universe is blah blah blah? Well, how about
the universe is blah blah blah?
Right. How about when it comes to like Reeves and Winter, though? I mean, I found it refreshing that they're able to just jump back into this, and now, which I wasn't aware of, they were a major force in even getting this movie made. How does that make you feel when it comes to like two successful blockbuster capable actors coming back to something like this?
Oh, I think that, like, I mean, any movie that I've ever done that I've been in love with the movie, like, we always talk about sequel scenarios and
hell yeah,
how we can come back and relive whatever glory we felt in it.
Sure.
So so for me, it's not that big of a stretch that they did that. And like I originally thought, that it was the fans that instigated, but it does make sense that it was the stars that instigated, especially if they're still buddies and still want to work together and do something ridiculous and fun.
Well, they had help.
If you look at
go
like
ahead,
Keanu Reeves, credits over the last several years, it's been dark.
Yeah, it's true.
Why not do something fun?
That's true.
I get that side of it, but
yeah.
What were you going to say?
I think that when you talk about how this was put together and how we were able to find out that they were a major force behind it, the fans definitely were able to jump in and, through Twitter and everything, give their thumbs up. And one of the other beautiful things about the ending was that, especially in the time of COVID now, the ending was filled with these people who were like, doing concerts over Zoom or over Google group or something like that. And it was this really cool thing where you see people who are cosplaying as Bill and Ted doing their thing, but you also see people just being happy, like playing music with each other. How do you think, I mean, despite the fact that we're dealing with, obviously, rigorously different production schedules than we would if COVID wasn't hitting, how do you think when it comes to the delivery of silliness, the delivery of this message, Actually, no, not the message, but when it comes to the medium. I mean, we both had to watch this in our living rooms. Do you think you would have enjoyed this more if it was like in a big theater surrounded by huge sound and color and everything, or is it just not that kind of movie?
No, for me, this was a couch movie for sure.
It's like one of these, like, I think kind of is like reminiscent of like when Bogus Journey and Excellent Adventure on TV or on HBO anyway. I mean, I've been watching those movies over and over again. They've always been on my couch. I agree with you. Like, it hasn't been that much of a departure for me either to see the brand new one in the comfort of my own home when I'm just sitting back and eating potato chips. It's interesting. I am worried though when it comes to the capability of like movies like this to exist in the future. I mean, if people get really into the idea of watching films at home, we have Tenet that's out right now in theaters, which I think is honestly it's a pretty big mistake. We have some theaters here opening in Utah. And on a side note, separate from this movie, I have been seeing some advertisements coming up with Tenet that talk about how, it'll flash up on the screen, the preview and that kind of thing. We should be talking about Bill and Ted. I just want to like switch over here for a second. And on these advertisements, it'll say like, the big screen is back in Salt Lake City. And I can't help but get angry at it because I think it's so irresponsible when it comes to getting people into big theaters. When we talk about like the delivery system and that kind of thing, do you and we no longer are given the capability to have this go across the world traditionally, international release, big theaters, how much of a decision to make a movie driven by nostalgia alone, when they're going to miss out on big profits, obviously, is going to affect other movies like this in the future. I mean, we can all talk about the sequel we want to see or the end of a series we want to see. Do you think that, the way things that are changing now, if that's going to be an extra hurdle that studios are going to have to jump over and get through?
I don't know how to answer that question just because it's such a new one now. But I mean, I think that
it's a fresh wound, man, for sure.
I think that the new distribution, streaming platforms and stuff like that, I think that they're going to maintain.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to see huge box office type numbers ever again.
Yeah.
Until everything equalizes, I suppose.
Maybe it has to do with like the prices too. I mean, like this movie was $20 for me to rent.
I mean, if you think about what the regular box office would be to go, that's a date.
Yeah, for sure. I mean?
So for me, that's something that I find a little bit irritating, but I also understand it. I mean, Mulan's going to do the same thing when that's released.
It's like $30 on Disney Plus right now.
Right. But I mean,
also necessary.
If you look at the comparison to taking your family to go see it, I mean, that's easily $100.
Yeah.
And you're throwing 30 out,
Yeah. I'm probably saving money.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot more affordable in that sense, but you still don't have the movie going experience. Like I would love to see all of the Disney movies in the theater just because that's nostalgia for me.
Totally.
But it's just a different way to look at money numbers, movie money numbers, and figure out what'll work and what won't work. It's a really difficult one to
I want all the answers right now. You know what I mean? There was a big scene in this too that kind of made me nervous, and I know that this whole thing was shot and finished production before we got into the heavy days of COVID. It was shot in Louisiana and it was completed I think like back in March actually, and then things hit, and like the big time frame coming through was how are we going to get this distributed, how are we going to do press, that kind of stuff. There was a huge scene at the end where they finally go through and we find out that the prophecy wasn't regarding Bill and Ted, but it was actually regarding their daughters.
Spoiler alerts.
Which makes way more sense to me than Bill and Ted.
Totally, because they are...
It was a great storyline. It made a lot of sense.
It did make a lot of sense. We find out that Taya and Billy are the ones that actually... kind of wrote the song that saved the world, and Bill and Ted were the frontmen with their guitars, with a great band of like Louis Armstrong and Amadeus Mozart and Death itself, and making it happen. But it was a big scene. It was shot on a highway, or at least on a big set that was like, maybe reminded Keanu Reeves of The Matrix with a highway set or something like that. But we're dealing with like thousands of people and that kind of stuff. When it comes to production now, and I'd like you to speak with this because this is a question that kind of like popped in my head when I was watching this. I was looking at this stuff and I came to realize like it's a good thing they shot this movie before everything hit, because a scene like that would be so much more complicated, just the safety and that kind of stuff taken into consideration. How are they handling it now? You've been on sets before during all of this, and you've told me that things have maintained their safety pretty well, partly because of union stuff and
50 people max, that kind of thing. But I would say it would be a similar sense of just doing plates and getting extras in different places, or getting talent in different places, and compositing all of it together in a movie magic way. I think you could very easily get the numbers there. It would just be a lot more work on the post-production side of it.
That's something that's really just going to start hitting us hard, really. We're going to be getting a lot more movies that depend upon a small cast and green screens than we are with, like, stuff that's coming out in the 80s, like being shot actually in the streets of New York or whatever.
And, I think that's okay for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be one of those things where it's missing a little bit of the movie magic, but you can always get enough people in to make it look real.
That's great.
And as long as you can make it look real, I think that you're okay. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're going to get gigantic courtroom scenes. I don't know that we're going to get gigantic, Senate hearings and congregations and large groups of numbers for anything. I mean, I can't even remember the movie that had the biggest number of extras, but I mean, on the High School Musical, they had like 2,000 extras on a weekend, which was insane at the time. So, I mean, and that's all just youngsters and stuff like that. It feels weird. 5,000 or something like that. It's filling a stadium and moving them around for different shots, that kind of thing.
Oh my goodness, that's intense.
I'm just, in a way, I'm glad that's going to be the new norm.
Yeah. I mean, we have to take steps where we can.
For me, I don't like dealing with numbers like that anyway. Yeah. But
as soon as the vaccine comes through, you're going to be getting calls. Andrus, we're reshooting Waterworld. We're doing it in the Salt Flats. It's going to be great.
You know what? I would be down for that. And I would just say, keep the numbers down, man. Let's do it.
For real. I hear you.
Yo, Casey, let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's go into the specialities when it comes to that, Ben. When you were going through and checking out, we've talked a little bit about how this was a nice balance of actors who are really well honed. They know their craft. The chemistry between Reeves and Winter was tight, and we had some new actors that were, saying that they're new is a little bit weird to me because some of these actors are so very experienced. Yeah. But as an actor, do you think that things here were handled well? Do you think they handled the humor? Do you think they handled the nostalgia? Do you think you mentioned about the caricature stuff coming up, which I agree with you, was a little bit lukewarm. What are your opinions about how people were able to dive back into this 20-year-old series and pump some life back into it?
I mean, they made it a contemporary piece, so I don't think it matters at all. I think that them infusing some new comedy masters, I think just helps.
Yeah.
The fact that they have Kristen Schaal.
For sure.
She's amazing every single time in her quirky weirdness that she is.
Right.
Holland Taylor is the great leader.
Yeah. She was so good
in so many ways.
That's
and
great.
Then you get Anthony Carrigan.
That's true. I forgot about that.
And Anthony Carrigan, if you don't know who he is, he
played Dennis. He played Dennis the robot. Dennis Caleb McCoy. Yeah. He's famous for oh my god, just like being on Barry and just doing all kinds of stuff.
Let's talk about NoHo Hank.
Oh yeah, exactly, dude.
So
that was a pleasant surprise. So I honestly, to follow up on your point, I really love like Jillian Bell and like Aaron Hayes too. They both have done like comedy and everything, and been able to just hold their own. Erin Hayes too, who played Elizabeth. She was Keanu Reeves' wife on there. Gosh, I'm sputtering. But yeah, no, you make a great point.
So, and I've been a fan of Gemma Mays for forever.
Yeah.
So I think that she's great. But I mean, once you get everybody in there, I think that they fit well enough. So I think the cast did their job.
Yeah.
Beautifully. I really do, because for the movie that it is, the result that you get is exactly what it is.
Which is what saved it, I think.
My biggest problem was the Billy and Theo characters.
Yeah, I feel you.
Just doing caricatures of their fathers. But I'm sure that's a production decision and not the actor's decision. So
I got you.
I can safely blame the production for my disdain of that. But at the same time, if you want to go into the acting chops of it, I think that they pulled off the caricatures.
Oh, hell yeah.
Beautifully.
Yeah. They really did.
Kudos to the actors for doing.
They were doing impressions of the characters. They were doing impressions of them, and they were doing them very competently, better than I'd ever be able to do.
And then William Sadler's just
Yeah.
Amazing. So I'm really glad that they got him back as Death.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Awesome.
And then just all the different, iterations of Bill and Ted.
They just did such a good job.
Happy with it.
I mean, I'm just so happy they were able to have fun with it. That is one thing, like you make a really good point. Like people know what they're going to get. And I think committing to that is such an important thing to do. When you make a movie for the fans, you have to understand that they're expecting you to do the dance a little bit. And when you're willing to accept that, hey, this is just going to be a funny, silly, nonsensical situation where, people are going to be really, really nice to each other. They're even going to let you, steal equipment out of a Guitar Center truck in the middle of a highway during the apocalypse and just play some music.
Convenient.
I know, right? That was another note too. Like, I don't mean to cut you off or anything like that, but I kind of wish that everybody could be as nice in the real world and as friendly as the musicians and the other characters that were in this movie, obviously. I mean, they're kidnapping Louis Armstrong, and he's like, whoa, Jimi Hendrix. All right, let's go. I mean, it's
like ridiculous.
It's super good.
I
like it.
Tell me what you thought about the audio.
The biggest thing in the audio is really like, besides like the scene that you see coming up with in Hell and the finale, it's the music. I mean, the music was clear. It sounded great, and these were like original tracks that were published and pushing through.
Was it all Mark Isham? I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And when it goes through, and you can see that the music becomes a character of itself. I hate saying that, but you could. It's
relevant for this movie.
It was relevant for this movie. Yeah, it was positive. They were keeping all like kind of like an '80s rock kind of major chord kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like that. Apparently, the song that saves the world is in C major, so that's good to know. It's the easiest key to play, I think, and it's just. It's just refreshing to see that come back again. I love hearing the sound effects whenever Bill and Ted were doing the air guitar and making that happen. And it was just, it was really competent. I mean, that's another thing, too. When it comes to the way in which sound is really used appropriately, whether or not you're dealing with a ridiculously heavy drama like Schindler's List or a happy popcorn film like Bill and Ted Face the Music, it's important for the music to know its place and just do what it can to support. And the music here was really good in that regard. And there was a nice mix of regular Foley effects and that kind of stuff too. Definitely great. I really enjoyed it.
What about the time travel sound effects?
Oh yeah, super good. That's the thing. Like I never. They did the usual thing where like time travel in this universe is they have a magic device that can go through the tubes of time, and you see like the good CGI popping up, which has vastly improved since 1991, since the last time we saw it, of course. And like this is a fantasy, really. I mean, we're not dealing with a soundscape that's going to be realistic whatsoever. Even if you are going to have scenes that take place in the real world, this is a fantasy movie. It's dealing with the fantastic, it's dealing with the weird. So the challenge in that is still being able to support the different facets of this movie, and with such a wide breadth, not taking it too far. And the sounds made sense. So that's really the most important thing that comes into play when you see something like this coming up. The dialogue was clean. I did have, like I mentioned before, I did not like how when the actors were playing the instruments, how sometimes the sync was completely abandoned. That was one thing I did not like. And all it would take is for another take, or like maybe a switch of the camera so that, or maybe teach somebody the fingering on the guitar or whatever. That I did not like about the sound. That was a pet peeve that kind of took me out of the universe every once in a while. It's a stupid thing to be angry about.
I don't know what you mean.
I know exactly. Shut up. We're not dubbing your video feed anytime soon. But besides that, everything was good. That did miff me though. I mean, Jeremy Kraft can't play the trumpet. Desmond Still cannot play the guitar, and neither can Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter apparently. But hey, it's a fun movie. I'm willing to let it go. That's understandable. But carrying on. All good in the time travel.
But I will say, like I said at the top of our conversation, not on air, that after the processing was done for this movie, I looked back and I just giggled. So, I mean,
sure,
it's definitely a make you happy movie.
Absolutely, you could watch all three movies in order, and you have a nice time waster when you're.
Yeah, like literally waste 6 hours.
That's it, dude. That's it. It would be great. It's a good party movie for sure. But that's where we're going to call it a day, I'm afraid, when it comes to the final chapter. As this movie has closed on the Bill and Ted universe, we too will close on this episode, everybody. But, there's still some things that you could do to help us out. Let us know what you think. Feel free to send us an email, pullfocuspod@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud. Offer some comments. Did you see this movie? Did you throw down the $20-some-odd to watch it? Did you enjoy it? If not, why? Let us know. Because, I mean, as always, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. And as usual, we want to give a big shout out to anybody out there who's helping with, the COVID times. If you happen to be hearing the sound of our voices and it's helping you out in regards to any kind of work that you're doing to make other people's lives a little bit easier, we absolutely thank you from the bottom of our hearts. God bless you. Everybody, Salt Lake City crew, keep safe out there. Wear them masks and don't venture out into the forest too far. Let the firefighters take care of it. Andrus, thank you so very much, as always, to joining me this evening now and letting me know what you think. It's always a very good pleasure to see you and talk to you and be balanced in regards to films, silly or otherwise.
Be excellent to each other.
Absolutely. Party on, dudes. Party on. All right, you guys take care. Thank you very much. We'll see you later. Bye!